and welcome back to Theo's Coffee Break Podcast, where the coffee is always on and always ready at my coffee table. I'm your host, Theo, and today I am honored and so excited to share this space with someone whose story I think will really encourage and inspire you. Our guest is Sam Spencer, a gender-fluid, non-binary, older adult who at age 67 found both the vocabulary and the courage to express their truth. Sam's journey spans decades of teaching dance and art, raising a family, and now stepping into a chapter of freedom and authenticity in a very complicated world. So today we're going to move through this conversation in two parts. First, Sam will share their personal journey, what it was like to come into their truth later in life, and then later we'll shift into reflections of wisdom, resilience, and what Sam has learned through an essay that they wrote. So grab your coffee and let's welcome Sam to the coffee table.
Hello.
Hi. How are you feeling?
A little nervous, very excited, a little bit emotional. I ate like teary-eyed about it. This is a beautiful opportunity, and I'm just happy to be here.
You know, I'm so happy to have you here, and I'm so glad to have met you. You're such a wonderful person, and so to be able to have you here to share your story today with so many others, I just feel really honored to have you here today. So thank you. So how about let's just jump right on in. So for our listeners who may not know you yet, how would you introduce yourself in your own words?
Well, I'm Sam Spencer. My pronouns are they, them. I'm an artist, and I'm a spouse, and I'm a mother. And I've been through an awful lot of things in my life that have kind of brought me to this day. I also feel like I'm still evolving as a human and learning more and more about what it means to be a part of the queer community, and in specific, the non-binary, gender-fluid community. It's been a real ride for the last about 3 years.
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah.
That recent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we're going to jump into this, but in the past 3 years, I guess, what was the turning point 3 years ago that encouraged you to step down this road?
Well, the pandemic was kind of a long moment. But during that time, I know a lot of us were kind of doing a lot of soul searching and seeking and maybe inner work, and that was one of the impetuses that got me exploring gender. I also have a family that has we have a number of individuals who are in the queer community, gay, lesbian, and also non-binary, trans. So I was seeing some examples around me of in the younger generation that were very intriguing to me and caused me to wonder about some of my early feelings as a young person and a child, and just wondering if there's maybe something missing that I haven't quite connected the dots in my own, way of being.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that definitely answers the question. I think for me, when some people look at the queer community or the younger generations, it scares them, and it doesn't. And then what I'm hearing is you approached it with curiosity before judgment, where a lot of people do judgment and no curiosity. What about what you were seeing made you wonder, like, hey, is there a missing piece, a part of my identity?
Well, I wanted to back a little bit up too into what you just said about being curious as opposed to judging, because I've also come out of a very involved dance background. So I have always had people in the queer community, in the arts community, and around me. So it was really I was very comfortable with folks. And I think the combination of seeing what was going on in my own family in the young people in my family, plus some inner child work that I did in a therapeutic model during the pandemic that kind of began to connect some dots for me. And it was just amazing. You can't really define it. It's just kind of a very inner sense of discovery
and exploration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an overnight thing. It was a process for sure over many months.
Yeah. Yeah.
But since I'm going to be 71 here in a couple months, and I'm going,
really?
I don't have any time to waste either. There was kind of an urgency to reclaim and understand all the years that I lived with a different definition of who I am and why I was doing that. Was it really authentic, or was it imposed from the outside, from the expectations of the various communities and the family of origin?
I want to say you're very youthful. I would have not guessed 71. So you have a very youthful energy.
Well, talk to my orthopedic surgeon about that. I'm getting my knee replaced in a week, so I definitely have earned my years.
Absolutely. To which I am praying. You share that journey, the knee replacement stuff on your social media, and I wish and hope and pray for a speedy recovery, and definitely hope this one sticks.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
I've got a lot of miles that I want to do before I lay over. So
yeah. So looking back, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced in expressing your identity earlier in your journey? And by earlier, I know you mentioned about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say during that 3-year span, what would be some of the biggest challenges?
Well, I would say I probably had it pretty easy, at least with immediate family and my spouse. He was in on board the whole time. He was continually being, as I was going through these, and which I'll explain later in my longer version of the situation, I would be like working in my journals and experiencing some things, and I would run up the stairs with my journal and say, Gary, this, that, the other, and he'd be, okay, that's cool. And so I never really had a pushback. There was maybe a little pushback sometimes when I was like thinking about changing how I'm dressing into a more gender neutral fashion. And my immediate family, of course, were very, very receptive. I had a few friends that were a bit shocked, and a couple that were really pushed me back in a way. And I just had to say, okay, we're just not going to be in that kind of a relationship. But I want to roll back about how the origin story of being really locked in as into a female model. Because in the 50s, little girls did certain things. We had to wear dresses to school, whether you liked it or not. There was a real strict division, boy-girl division, in terms of careers, in terms of choices versus, homemaker versus career person. And then I entered the dance world, actually starting out in figure skating, but it had evolved into more of a dance career. And that was a lot of body requirements to fit a female mold. And I did a little fashion modeling, and you had to be a certain way. So I was really locked into a very tight expectation, and I was shamed. A lot of body shaming from teachers, dance teachers, parents, having to be thin and gorgeous and makeup and all the things. And it was just like, it just got to a point when this all came to a head at 67, I'm like, I'm so done.
Yeah.
It is so nonsense. I know you said don't swear, but I could say a few things.
Yeah.
But, it's just, I don't know. For me, for a lot of people, it has a lot of meaning, and it's where they feel, their best.
Yeah.
But not for me.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm hearing that it can be restricting, and, in a lot of ways kind of determines a certain outcome in your life, and you were looking for something bigger than that really expressed your individuality. So I'm curious to know if you would care to share that pushback from family. Would you care to talk a little bit more about that and what that experience was like?
Well, and it was just one family member, and
sometimes it's just one that can.
But
really...
it wasn't a huge pushback. It was actually more of a curious moment that required a time to sort of marinate and think through and have a little discussion. And, in time it worked out really nicely.
Yeah.
The bigger pushbacks were from people I knew before, like friends, acquaintances, a couple of people that were just, they weren't going to use my new name. They weren't going to use my pronouns. They were just in a certain kind of, I come out of the evangelical Christian church. So I had a number of friends in that, sort of that mindset who, many people were very accepting, but there are 3 specific ones who just kind of, the wall went up and I'm not going to beat the wall down. I'm just going to go move on.
Yeah.
It's sad. It happens.
It is sad.
And I'll have to say I live in Ann Arbor, which is a beautiful community to live in for, the LGBTQ community is a big part of the Ann Arbor community, and it's a real safe place to live. So
it is.
Yeah.
I love Ann Arbor because it is definitely more welcoming. But yeah, for the sake of our listeners, I just want to get a little bit more specific on what that level of pushback, would you say that it is coming from a place of judgment? Like, what does it look and sound like? Was it more than just not using your name and pronouns?
Well, that was how it was expressed. I
want to talk about the feeling, like how it
the feeling inside. Oh, it's like a gut punch.
Okay.
When you think somebody loves you, and has been a friend for years, and then you put something out there like that, and what rises up is negative rejection, or a refusal to even look at it. But I think that people in that category are stuck. I think they're stuck and it still doesn't take away the hurt that you experience as a person, but there's a lot of that in our current political and social situation in the United States and other communities. They believe a certain way. They have a certain right and wrong. They have this is how I interpret reality and spirituality, and I just crossed their line.
Yeah.
I crossed their line. They just can't open up to it.
Yeah.
And so they don't, and they won't. And I'm not saying that they might not down the road, but that's not my job. I have to protect my core.
And that wasn't your experience either. And so what I'm hearing is that it was very personal.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't just something, for other people, I do feel like when they're on the other side of this, it's like, oh, they'll get over it. They'll be fine. Like that's not how I knew them before. And this is a phase.
Well, that may be in fact the truth, but
on your
they've got to
side,
come. Basically, the ball is in their court now.
Yeah. And then like for you on the receiving end, it's not just that. It's something significantly more. And you were hoping for acceptance, but it felt more like rejection.
It absolutely did. And also when you're just months into this type of a change,
sure,
it's fragile.
Yeah.
You're emotionally fragile. You're vulnerable, and you're bravely going out and announcing this new identity, this new way of being in the world. And so when you get that, there's still that, what will people think? And your questioning is like, am I crazy? You still have that. It takes a while to grow into the public persona.
Yeah. Gosh, thank you so much for sharing that. That really helps me understand even more about you in this journey that you're on. So yeah, you've mentioned that younger generations inspired you. How did those connections help you step into your freedom now? From a place of observation, or was there someone of the younger generation that was by your side as you were walking through this?
Yeah, and I think I can, not violate any confidences in sharing. I have a grandchild who, in the earlier teens, expressed their non-binary leanings.
Mm-hmm.
And it grew and grew and grew and ended up to now where they're living as a trans boy and are a successful student of art at a beautiful art school and just thriving and just seeing this lovely process that they went through several years ahead of me. It was really eye-opening. Mm-hmm. And being the grandparent of this kid was it was marvelous. It was a marvelous thing to see. And it also made me think and wonder, if any of this goes through family lines, or I know there's a neurodiverse part of this, and there's a lot of non-conforming, gender non-conforming, and neurodiversity that sort of wraps and weaves through it all. And so I would say that was a beautiful thing to be able to witness and then feel supported by someone who's in their 20s. And here I am, Graham we have that. Okay, they get me, it's pretty weird.
I'm trying not to cry right now because that was very beautifully said. Wow. It does help to feel seen. But when you're feeling seen by a younger generation, a grandchild, in this kind of way, being mirrored back.
Well, and they're blazing this trail.
Yeah.
That generation hopefully will get this thing figured out.
Yeah.
Because it's really a mess right now.
Absolutely.
And they're living it, and they're living in the what the heck is going to be down the road for us.
Right.
As we're trying to navigate our careers and our families and our rights.
Yeah.
So, I have this deep conviction of my own identity,
mm-hmm.
but I also feel like I'm an advocate.
Absolutely.
For the young people.
Absolutely.
And kind of it's also a stand that I take to be standing in my truth and my authenticity and say, I'm here for you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I know growing up for me, looking to people who are older, for representation and visibility. Growing up for me, I didn't have that. And so if I had someone like you, especially within my family, that would have helped me leaps and bounds to have more courage, to be more authentic and empowered. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. As you briefly mentioned and have shared, that support hasn't always been consistent. What has that looked like with family, friends, in the wider world? I would like to talk about a specific experience, if you would be willing to share, or a specific experience that you have. In what way has that not been consistent for you?
Now, are you talking specifically of being in the non-binary identity, or other things in my life that where I was really pushed at and unaccepted?
Whatever you're willing to share, because
it's all related. And goes back. It's very heavily wrapped into body acceptance and being specifically shamed as a young adult and a teen, as a dancer. So I think that part of the this coming into my own as in gender is also coming into my own as a body, body acceptance, being positive about how I am. Yeah. Specific events that I can think of, well, I can go to a story. I can do two stories. One would be as a ballet student in a studio and on a Saturday with a teacher. And I'm not going to mention names, if that's okay.
That's preferred.
Yeah. But being at the bar, doing exercises, and having this teacher telling us all that we're all too fat. We're not anywhere near as good as the other kids our age in New York. We're never going to make it, as a motivation. And then every Saturday throwing us on the scale. And if we were 5 pounds over, our parts were given to an understudy.
Oh my gosh.
So there was a huge pressure to conform to that, that requirement. And I had a full-blown eating disorder from 14 until about age 22. So, and then, that was fueled by parents who were in the real diet industry mentality and having all that going on. So I see, for the most part, I see boys walking around being real comfortable in their bodies, real free, real like easy, real like comfortable in their clothes, really like I can just sit here and be whatever comfortable.
Yeah.
And all the young girls are worrying every minute about their hair, their makeup, their shoes, their figures there. It's just like,
yeah.
I was in that for so long. So moving out into a non-binary way of being is really freeing from that point. Now, the other story is more recent, which is a story where I'm doing a little vacation getaway to a beautiful West Michigan town. We love Lake Michigan. So Gary and I are walking on the pier, and we run into a friend who I had associated with for years and years, and then we hadn't seen each other in a long time. This was a dance associate.
Yeah.
And I told her, I've introduced myself, said, yeah, I've had a name change, and my name is Sam, and my pronouns are they, them. And she said, I would never be able to call you Sam. I will always call you Beth. Now, Beth is I like to say my retired name. And then started quoting scriptures at me about, God has known you since before the day you were born and all this stuff. And I was just like, that was the gut punch. It's like a person you think you trust.
Yeah.
You think your friends, you think they will basically be a lifelong friend, and then you throw this unspeakable thing at them.
Yeah.
And it's just like they cannot handle it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure.
So then you have that person not in your life.
Yeah.
You have a choice. What are you going to do?
Right.
It just isn't going to work.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it sounds like you handled it the best that you could at the time. I don't think there's really an easy way to overcome that in at least in that setting.
Well, in that setting, it was change the subject, talk about the grandkids, and make a quick exit.
Yeah.
And then, you go home and you're going, I guess we're not Facebook friends anymore. A little no contact action there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's you what was it someone said recently was like, you're not aware of the options that I had at the time, and I made the option that was best for me. And always things are, hindsight, right? We look back and we think like, oh, maybe I could have done this, could have done that. No, you did the best you could. And
I stand by it still, because
you should. Yeah.
I talk about how fragile it can be and how emotionally hard it can be, and how I don't have time in my life to,
right.
I'm not going to try to sell, convince, any of that. If she had been curious and said, oh, how interesting, I'd like to hear about that. Tell me about it.
Right.
Wasn't that that was not what it was.
No, it wasn't. So what do you want younger queer and trans people to know about resilience and standing strong right now in today's current political climate?
Oh boy.
I know.
There's so much to that. How many hours do you have? No.
Plenty.
I think that there's a balance to be hit. You have to really take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure that you are surrounded by people who are with you, loving you, accepting you exactly the way you are. In other words, you got to find, if it's not in your family, you got to find a chosen family.
Yeah.
Because doing this alone is really, I'm not sure, very good. I would say find a good therapist if you need help, or look into services that are available. In fact, I have brought some info about something later maybe we can talk about.
Sure, yeah.
But then also being able to be representing, showing up for events, like pride events, advocacy groups, things like that, as much as you can, as much as your nervous system will allow you to do.
Yeah.
Because everybody's different, and everybody has a different amount of, like the grandkid I'm talking to you about, who's in art school, is and basically spends all the waking hours drawing and doing amazing things, and is actually majoring in animation, and it's just hours and hours of studio time. I don't think wants to be the poster kid for the non-binary community. That's not their personality. That's not their energy level. They just want to live a quiet life and be in a safe space and do their work.
And that's really beautiful.
So you get to figure out who you are, and then you have to figure out how you want to be in the world.
Yeah.
In that. And if you're not comfortable being out, if that's too much, or if you're not safe, some people have to navigate that for a while. I haven't had to. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like I haven't even done this very long, and here I am so old, and I've learned a lot about what other people have experienced, but I haven't really put a lot of time in,
But your life experiences, I mean, what you're sharing, dating back to the 50s, right?
Well,
60s?
yeah, I mean, that's when I was really sure that I wanted to be a boy.
Yeah.
Seriously wanted to be a boy.
But to live through that many different generations and see the world change that much,
mm-hmm.
I mean, what I'm hearing is listen to your body, listen to your intuition, and know that not everyone is given the same opportunities of other people to feel safe enough to say, this is me. So I just want to really touch on that, because, wow, I cannot imagine how you must feel about the world now compared to what's happened in the past.
And a thought is running through my mind now. All of the people that are older than me, for the most part, my parents-in-law, my grandparents, they're all dead. I have a couple of cousins who are very, very open, and I have actually a cousin who's a lesbian. She's a little younger than me. Yeah, but that side of the family where all the older people are still alive, are very, very accepting. But I have always wondered what my parents would have thought, if this had happened, if I had expressed these things. But, you can't go back. And in the 70s, what I've experienced didn't even exist. Mm-hmm. There was no language for it. It just wasn't a thing. They were tomboys. That was what it was.
You didn't talk about it. I mean, that's the thing is
there's no way to even define it. You feel a certain way. And then I was shamed for pretending to be a boy at times. And
and it wasn't looked much into. So on the flip side, what do you wish allies understood better about showing up for people on gender journeys?
Oh, okay. So this is a big one. And this is just stuff I'm quoting out of Google, but it is true. You may know a person, you don't know a person, you don't know what it is. What it is about a trans person, what it is about a gay person, what it is about a queer person, until you've known a person.
Yeah.
So you can make a lot of statements based on not knowing actual living people, based on just reading stuff that's not based in truth, not based in real people. But also, there are so many resources out there. If you have a transgender or a gay friend, gay lesbian friend, queer person, and you have a bunch of questions, they may be the kind of person that really wants to talk about it. It can also be exhausting.
Yes.
But there are so many resources and places you can get good information, so you can do a little of your own educating about those realities. So that would be my advice to allies. Yeah.
I would like to say, too,
advocates and allies.
Absolutely. And I would like to say, too, there are some people that don't feel comfortable talking about this. Even if they know that the person in front of them is accepting and loving, there's some people that just don't want to talk about it. So I'm really glad you mentioned resources as well.
Well, and you may not feel like, I mean, being, obviously it's an important part of who I am.
Yeah.
But it's just a part of who I am.
Exactly.
It's not like the whole of who I am. So, I mean, there are other things to talk about.
Yeah.
That are the full person.
I love that.
So, yeah.
Sam, thank you so much for sharing. I just love having you here at the coffee table. This is such valuable insight. So, you've lived through decades of cultural change. What gives you hope for the future of the LGBTQ plus communities?
Well, we're not giving up, for starters. You know, this is a bump in the road. When you see all the cultural change that I've seen for decades, the ups and downs, for different people who are disenfranchised, under-resourced, all the things that are struggles in our society for different groups, there's a cycle. And even though it seems really dark and rough right now, it'll swing back. I like to, in my hopeful mode, I'm saying, 5 steps forward, 2 steps back, that we'll continue the forward progress that we've made in all these areas of, I also feel great empathy for what's going on in the different racial communities and immigrant communities and all the things that are being pressed on right now very hard.
Yeah.
So on the other hand, it's not, we need to keep, we can't just sit back and hope that it's going to take care of itself. So it's hard to find some avenues right now that are productive because of what's happening in the national scene. But I think in the local scene, there's tons of good things that are happening, and we just have to keep in our little zone and keep moving.
Yeah, I love what you just said there, because I'm sitting here and I'm just thinking things are so bleak right now. I don't know how you can be so optimistic, but the way that you grounded it to being on a national scale, it might seem discouraging, but on a local scale, there's hope. There's ways.
Oh yeah, and every time I drive through a neighborhood, like even driving to the studio, pride flag, trans flag, rainbow flags. In this neighborhood in Grand Rapids is pretty conservative in general. Yeah. Church on every corner kind of place. Methodist church right down the street where we're staying in Holland. Big pride flag, like huge on the side of the building. Yeah. So those are the kind of things that just, I just get so excited. I applaud when I drive by. So. We
do too. Yeah. Me and my partner, when we're driving around or going from place to place, we see a pride flag. It's kind of a game like, pride flag. Mm-hmm. And that just makes you feel a little bit less alone. So what have your friends and chosen family taught you about authenticity, even in the hard times?
Well, I have to say my Ann Arbor family, which is daughter, son-in-law, and 4 grandkids, they just awe me. Yeah. They awe me in their level of I'm getting choked up.
Tears are
really understanding, really reaching to the individual and their uniqueness, and trying not to put agendas on people, and just really allowing everybody to be themselves and express their emotions, and totally not the 50s model of parenting that I was raised with, but just an inspiration at all points. Like, I look at my daughter and say, would that I could have had you for my mom. That's how it is. So.
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. Tears are welcome here.
Well, so far it's so good. I haven't had the big waterworks yet.
They are welcome. And gosh, what your family, it sounds beautiful. You are great mother, great grandmother. Thank you for existing and sharing this kind of light and love with those near and dear to you.
Thank you, Theo.
Absolutely. So if someone listening feels afraid to live their truth, what words of encouragement would you want to give them?
Well, first of all, fear is normal. You gotta sort of take it one step at a time. You gotta trust yourself. You gotta find people that you can trust.
Yeah.
And if you are so inclined to find a power higher than yourself that you can trust, that always helps.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yes, it is.
And keep your eyes open. Keep open to... I always feel like the universe sets things in front of me. Like this, for example, meeting you, being here. Just keep your eyes open. And then, if you are discouraged, depressed in a bad way, there's help.
Yeah.
And never be afraid to find that help.
I love that. Yeah, the opportunities are all around us. And we just have to be in a place to not just see them, but be willing to accept them. I think that there is a level of fear or insecurity sometimes when we're presented with something new. But if we just take the leap, take the opportunity and see where it takes us, we'll end up in spaces like this, like Theo's Coffee Break podcast.
Yeah. And I mean, stay safe too.
Yes.
It's important to stay safe.
Absolutely. Yeah, know it all before you try, right? Yep.
Be prepared.
So before we close out, you brought an essay
Well,
or a writing?
it's pretty long. And
I'd be open for you to read the whole thing.
Really?
Absolutely.
All right. And it's pretty nitty gritty.
Let's get into do you want me to
Let's get a drink of water before
Okay.
we...
Yeah, let's take a sip. Yeah.
I can't drink coffee. It makes me too hyper.
Well, and they also say that you got to drink some water sometimes or the coffee's just going to dry you out. So I do drink water, people. I don't just live on coffee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is real vulnerable. I just want you to know.
I'm excited to hear it.
All right.
Get settled in, folks. We're in for a real treat.
So I'm going to start with a couple of quotes that really mean a lot to me. One is from Oliver Sacks. And the quote is, "This became a remarkable turning point in my life."
Mm-hmm.
And a second quote from wonderful non-binary internet sensation Alok Menon. "There is nothing more powerful than stepping into your truth." So I'm a work in progress, aren't we all? And yet I still like to try to glue everything down into a solid, static whole. That said, here's the story, my story of self-discovery. The backstory is true. Where I'm going forward, remains to be seen. So here's my backstory. It's the pandemic, March 2020. I was anxious, depressed, pretty much thinking that civilization as we know it was on its way out. In order to maintain my sanity, I did numerous jigsaw puzzles, watched all 10 seasons of Friends, knitted 20 hats and a huge blanket, learned how to inline skate in my basement, and discovered Instagram. Sometime in April of 2021, while scrolling my Instagram feed, I happened upon Jeffrey Marsh, a fascinating human wearing glamorous makeup, beard stubble, whimsical earrings, elegant feminine clothing, with a voice and radiant blue eyes that were so gorgeous, so loving and welcome. I sat for a couple hours mesmerized, scrolling through posts and videos. I was captivated by Jeffrey's message of complete unconditional love and self-acceptance. Soon I learned that Jeffrey is non-binary and uses they/them pronouns. I continued to follow Jeffrey on Instagram. Every so often, they would suggest listening to one's inner child in order to process childhood trauma. I don't know about you, but during the pandemic, so many of us had extra time on our hands, and we thought deeply about such things. And as a child raised in a highly dysfunctional home by a bipolar mother, I had had my share of childhood trauma. I'd tried working with an inner child therapist in the 1990s, and it was an epic fail, probably a combination of me not being ready and the wrong therapist. But Jeffrey's post convinced me to give it another go. I searched Amazon for an inner child workbook. I found one that was based on right brain theory, which intrigued me since I had done a lot of right brain stuff with my artwork. There were writings and drawings, exercises using the non-dominant hand, exercises related to childhood memories. I spent several weeks working through some very deep, hard stuff, like how it felt growing up with a mentally ill mother, the body shaming I endured from her, and from my dance and skating teachers, and my history of disordered eating. One chapter was related to gender exploration. It prompted a long-buried memory of desperately wanting to be a boy when I was a child, and actually pretending to be a boy and being shamed for it. After a few weeks of doing self-help, I started feeling like I was getting in over my head. And coincidentally, one of Jeffrey's lives on Instagram mentioned the importance of listening to one's inner child again, and that they had private coaching openings. I felt like it was a huge nudge from the universe. A Zen Buddhist life coach, Jeffrey has had many years of experience working with folks who have suffered from childhood trauma. I emailed them, and after learning about my situation, Jeffrey invited me to register for in-person Zoom coaching. One of my main questions was about gender identity, but before we got to that, Jeffrey helped me reframe my thinking in support of unconditional self-acceptance and love. Oof. In fact, the gender topic didn't come up for 3 weeks, when in a homework assignment, Jeffrey asked me to make a work of art that represented how I feel about my gender. I made a gigantic, swirling galaxy-like drawing with many colors and lots of glitter. It was wonderful and free and childlike. It absolutely expressed how I feel. Gender creative, part female, part male, and part neither. This realization felt both amazing, like coming home to myself, and terrifying, leading to a bunch of questions that I needed to know answers to immediately. What about my pronouns? What about my name? When and how do I tell people? Well, my oldest daughter and 2 grandkids who are gender fluid, non-binary, with them, was I just being influenced? Was I being influenced by my gorgeously queer, non-gender conforming coach? Jeffrey encouraged me to take my time and let it all marinate. There was no rush. One of the main teachings that Jeffrey gave me is you don't have to figure everything out right away. You don't have to know all the answers. And some things, they don't have any answers. Nevertheless, little by little, the pieces of my gender puzzle began to fall into place. There was the day I felt the urge to clear out my closet of clothes that just didn't feel right. Anything too tight or too low cut. Anything that made me feel fat or overly feminine. That summer, I didn't wear a bathing suit to the beach. I just wore bike shorts and a loose tank top. It felt amazing. I felt so free. I was letting go of the discomfort of trying to fit the standard expectation for girls and women, sexy and thin, the oppressive feminine expectation I felt growing up. I stopped shaving. I stopped painting my nails and wearing makeup. It felt wild and wonderful to feel a breeze ruffle the hair on my legs, something I had not felt since age 12. For the previous 5 years, I had sported a buzz cut, and I still do, and that is going to stay. It felt so weirdly euphoric and a little scary to be reinventing myself at age 67. I changed my pronouns to she, they, to see how that would feel, and shortly thereafter, I decided that they, them felt even better. Then a couple of months later, I began to feel curious about the relationship between my given name and my newly discovered non-binary identity. I started playing around with gender-neutral names. I tried on a few different ones for size. My spouse, Gary, was a patient and willing co-conspirator when I asked him to use my trial names privately at home. I need to take this opportunity to give a shout out to Gary, who's he stood with me through all the changes. He has always had my best interest at heart. Bottom line, he wants me to be happy and at peace. After a few weeks of playing with different names, seemingly out of the blue, the name Sam popped into my head. Now, this is a really funny story. Inspired by the Dr. Seuss Sam in Green Eggs and Ham. Sam I Am personifies my inner child, joyful, playful, enthusiastic, and tenacious. Sam I Am has a tuft of unruly hair. So do I. A red hat. I had this red hat as a toddler. I wore it incessantly. A plump little belly. Me too. And no apparent gender. Also, I Am is a name for God. brings a spiritual dimension to the Seuss story. And one of my favorite Bible stories is the one where God calls Samuel. The name Samuel means God hears. In addition, I drew inspiration from the character Sam on the FX series Better Things. Sam is a 50-something mother of 3 teenage daughters, a no-nonsense person with a huge, tender heart. And then there's my maternal great-grandfather, Presley Samuel, who I resemble, especially his prominent ears. All these coincidences and realizations happened within a couple days. I felt the universe leading me to my new name, Sam. My old name, Beth, is still there. I don't call it a dead name. I call it my retired name. Beth was a huge part of my life, but Sam has always been there in the background. It's just that now, Sam has taken the driver's seat. I don't know the future. Perhaps Beth will return at some point. I just know that together, they are they. One of the nicest parts about being Sam was that it gave me a fresh start, helped me to leave behind the childhood baggage associated with body image and needing to fit into the cultural female stereotype. One I mostly felt like I didn't fit into, because as a kid, I liked dolls and toy trucks, ballet and climbing trees. I never felt totally like a girl. I generally disliked dresses and couldn't wait to get home from school in time to change from the scratchy petticoats, now this was 1962, and into my comfy corduroys and tennis shoes. I always liked boys and boys' bodies, and I still do, so much so that I sometimes think had I been born a boy, I would probably be gay. I loved riding bikes with the boys and playing Army. I also loved playing Barbies with my girlfriends. One Christmas, I got both a toy auto garage and a beauty parlor doll. Junior high, hard as I tried, I never fit into the girl cliques, and to this day, I feel blundering and awkward in saturated female spaces, a misfit, the square peg in the round hole. As I said before, I've always loved boys, dated boys, made out with boys, married a very handsome and very straight man. We wanted to have children, and I had 2 amazing pregnancies and 2 gorgeous AFAB, that's assigned female at birth, children, and I wouldn't trade those experiences or my kids for the world. So I guess it's good as now as a time as any to share my story of coming out. It's basically a 2-parter. The first was coming out as gender fluid, non-binary, with new pronouns in July of 2021. And the second part, when I changed my preferred name to Sam in March of 2022. So I'm pretty newly minted. The first person I came out to was a close friend, a skater friend of mine who is also non-binary and gender fluid. I was feeling scared, tentative, shy, and I knew that they would not only be accepting, but would celebrate my changes. And as an aside, when you come out and people accept you, that's great. But if they celebrate you, it's 1,000 times great. And that's exactly what they did. They were so loving and supportive as I took this first huge step, which really helped me take the next step, which was to tell others. Next, I announced my pronoun and gender changes to close family and friends in person, other family and friends via email and social media posts. I sent out a note in our Christmas card, too. Each time I came out, I felt so many feelings: excitement, elation, fear, relief, and always that nagging worry, what will people think? Most folks were supportive, many congratulatory, some I never heard from again, and that was hard. Several months later, I announced my name change in a similar series. Each stage of coming out felt both scary and euphoric. This was indeed a remarkable turning point in my life. The first family members I told about my new name and pronouns were my oldest daughter, her husband, and their 4 children. As I mentioned before, they are a beautiful group of genderqueer folks and allies, so it was no surprise to me that they were thrilled and excited about my changes, and also eager to use my correct pronouns and call me by my new name. I asked my grandkids to call me Graham rather than Grandma. Graham Sam has a nice ring to it, don't you think? When I told my younger daughter about my gender changes, she asked me a deep, honest question. Why not just redefine woman on your own terms while staying a she and keeping your given name? The idea of me being non-binary and gender non-conforming after 40 years of her knowing me as a conventional female mom was both surprising and unexpected for her. We had a great conversation that day, and even though it was hard for me not to feel immediate acceptance, I know that she, like me, does not take to change easily. I gave her time and space to process things, and it didn't take long for her to wrap her head around my changes and embrace them and me wholeheartedly. When I told my younger sister about my new name and pronouns and how I had wanted to be a boy as a kid, she said that when we were little, I was always her protector, her pillar of strength, a role I assumed naturally as the older sibling in a house ruled by our abusive bipolar mother. She got my changes easily and immediately started calling me Sam. Fun fact, when I was 10 years old, I caught the neighborhood bully in my best friend's backyard whipping my sister with a vinyl jump rope. I chased him down the driveway on my bike, screaming epithets at him. Riding too fast and not wanting to careen into the street, I hit the brakes and ended up skidding into a retaining wall, flipping head over handlebars, landing on my face, knocking myself out cold, and breaking off my front tooth. In that moment, I definitely felt like a boy, a powerful warrior, defender boy. Anyway, I digress. Over the next several weeks, I told all the people that I interfaced with, my skating coaches and rink friends, my doctors, neighbors, even my credit card company, who willingly sent me duplicate cards with my new moniker. Talk about euphoric. Most people were accepting. Some were neutral. Only a few negative. As I mentioned before, there was this one time I ran into a friend whom I had lost touch with over the years when I was on vacation. And when I told her about my new name and pronouns, she said, "I will never be able to call you Sam. You will always be Beth to me." And then she quoted Bible verses about how God has your name written on his heart and has known you before the creation of the world. Yikes. Oh well, it's normal for folks to not get the non-binary thing. People who simply can't accept the changes or whose worldview won't let them. It's not necessarily my job to convince or educate, but it is my job to be honest and to let people deal with my changes as they see fit. I've heard other trans and non-binary folks talk about how exhausting it is to try to explain themselves. It is. I guess my main explanation, without unnecessary caveats, is this is me and it feels right. Here's the thing. I'm a work in progress. That's what non-binary gender fluid is. It's fluid. It changes from day to day. How I feel, what it is. At this point, I use Sam as my social name and have kept my given name as my legal. I'm constantly and automatically misgendered female, perpetually she'd and ma'amed, no matter how gender neutral or masculine I dress. I've toyed with the idea of using they, she for pronouns. But no, every time I start to waffle on my pronouns, I immediately recoil. A fierce determination to keep my they, them pronouns rises up. Sometimes when people misgender me, I correct them. Sometimes I don't. Depends on the situation and how much energy I have in the moment.
Sam, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. For the listener, for who's listening right now, you cannot see me, but I was just bawling, just crying throughout that whole thing, because of how real it was. And I could see a lot of myself there, but I feel like anyone who's listens to what you just shared, it's really going to help dial it in to help you understand why this conversation is so important today here at the coffee table. So before we close, I know the Trevor Project is important to you, Sam. Mm-hmm. So why is this work meaningful, and how can the listeners support and be a part of this change?
Okay, so, well, first of all,
sure.
Many of us are aware that the government has pulled back on a very important service that was offered through, I think, the health department or something nationally, where you had to call in suicide prevention. It is absolutely a fact that LGBTQ youth are high risk, especially ones who are not getting the right kind of support from community and family. Very high suicide rate. And the Trevor Project, and I can't quote a bunch of statistics, but they have really stepped into this gap and provided, 24/7 hotline, suicide hotline, counselors, all this available. But now that the government has dropped back these toll-free numbers, they had a dedicated line for LGBTQ folks. Now it's just general. So there's no dedicated line for LGBTQ people. Trevor Project needs support to help beef up their end of it. And so one can give financial support easily online. You can also be trained as a counselor where you'll be, helping kids or young adults, or I'm not sure what the age range is. I think it's mostly teens and young adults to work through things and get the right kind of resources. So I find that to be, it's one of my main places I write checks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So is this something we can find online?
Yes, Trevor Project, and I'm assuming you could put a little something in the show notes for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, look up the Trevor Project, Trevor as in Trevor. And that's where you can make a direct impact and a positive change and help protect our youth, or even, anyone a part of this community that is struggling with identity. So thank you, Sam. Thank you for being here. And thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank you for being here for me and for listening.
Absolutely. Sam, thank you for sharing your story, your wisdom, and your courage with us today. If today's conversation touched you, I encourage you to learn more about the Trevor Project and the powerful work they do to support the LGBTQ+ youth in crisis. And to everyone listening now, thank you for joining me here at Theo's Coffee Break. And remember, the coffee's always on and it's always ready at my table. But most importantly, you are always welcome here. So please, until next time, take good care of yourself, keep walking in your truth, and I will see you in the next episode.